and Angela Rye. So I for somebody that watches The Breakfast Club, I don't know. Y'all tell me, is she on the show all the time? I don't know, but I think I said it before last time that she's just their political analyst. And whenever a Republican goes on this show, or let me not say that because Jill Stein's not a Republican. Whenever a non-Democrat goes on this show, it seems to be like you know how it's almost as if, and I don't want to disrespect The Breakfast Club, but you know how there's certain people like in a sport or let's say boxing. And at a certain point in boxing, it's like you fight these dudes. They become like journeymen where, you know, they used to be really good, but now they're kind of like, they maybe took a loss or two. And now they're trying to work their way back up. So now they become sort of like a gatekeeper. So I don't know if The Breakfast Club would be considered a gatekeeper in any other aspect. But when it comes to politics, because The Breakfast Club is obviously a huge platform, but when it comes to politics, they're not. So when it comes to politics, it's almost like The Breakfast Club is like the Republican gatekeeper ran by the Democratic Party, aka The Breakfast Club, where you go through, you have to go through this gauntlet where you're going to be bombarded with questions. They're asking you, why are you Republican? You're racist. They're racist, all this other stuff. And my man Byron got busy, like always. Byron, he's one of my favorite guys, man, when it comes to this political space. But let's get into it.
Party. When David Duke joined the Reform Party, he left. And he famously said, I can't be associated with that party because they let David Duke come in. That man is a Klansman.
Let me run it back a little bit. Hold on.
2000, Donald Trump was a member of the Reform Party. Most people don't talk about this. He was a member of the Reform Party. When David Duke joined the Reform Party, he left. And he famously said, I can't be associated with that party because they let David Duke come in. That man is a Klansman. When he bought Mar-a-Lago, he desegregated Mar-a-Lago. But at the time when he bought it, only white people were allowed in Mar-a-Lago.
That's something that a lot of people don't know about Florida. So Florida, even in Miami Beach, like I know a lot of like the energy that they have now during spring break where they like, yo, no black people. No, I'm just joking. But if you know, then you know, because Memorial Day weekend, we know how that used to be, but it got crazy ever since the pandemic. So they tried to make it a little bit less urbanized. So it's a nice way of saying it. So, but before that, somebody can look it up. Black people used to not be allowed in Miami Beach. And it was a lot later in years. Like when you think about it, I know my dad visited, I think sometime in the 80s or early 80s or maybe late 70s, maybe like right before that. I could be totally wrong, but there was a certain point in time where Florida was extremely segregated. So that's just a little, I'm not sure that everybody knew about that. And especially the first part. And I know a lot of people like to act like Trump is a Klansman. I hope y'all caught that first part with Trump belonging to this Reform Party and then deciding to leave when David Duke decided to join. But let's keep going.
He desegregated Mar-a-Lago. But at the time when he bought it, only white people were allowed in Mar-a-Lago. He desegregated that, allowed black people and Jewish people to be a part of Mar-a-Lago. So I think that when you start going down the road of the past, you have to take a man in his totality. I know the man today. And then when you couple that with the economic policies, the energy policies, the foreign policy, we have to acknowledge the reality that in the world today, the United States is in the midst of two conflicts, not directly, but indirectly. We just sent troops over into the Middle East because of the growing conflict with our ally Israel having to essentially secure its sovereignty and its protection from Hezbollah and Hamas. Well, when Donald Trump was president, we didn't have to do any of that. So I acknowledge the stuff that you're talking about that happened in the past, but I think you have to take a man on the full record. And when he was president, he did release a lot of black people from prison. He did that. He did try to reform some of the criminal justice system. He did that as well. And so that work is just as important as something that he might have said back during the Central Park 5.
I acknowledge the First Step Act, but when you said he undid the 94 crime bill, what do you mean?
What I mean is that the reforms in the First Step Act undid in part some of the issues in the 94 crime bill. Not totally. Not totally. It dealt with the sentencing of those people who were.
So just to give some context, I didn't want to play the entire part, but they were addressing Donald Trump's involvement with the Central Park 5 when he put up the full page ad calling for those kids, I believe, to get like the death sentence. Donald Trump responded in the second debate, the first one with Kamala Harris, and he made it very clear these kids pled guilty. I thought now it's a little weary. And even if I recall correctly, speaking to my dad, they there was some evidence that it came out, and apparently, I don't know if Donald Trump ignored it, but he still put out the ad. Neither here nor there. But Byron Donalds was saying, look it up. I shouldn't say neither here nor there. We should do our research. Maybe we'll look at that on Friday. But when it comes to this act that Donald Trump put in place, Byron Donalds is just saying that it actually reversed or repaired a lot of the things that were wrong with the crime bill, which obviously that's what, a lot of people say that Joe Biden was heavily involved with.
Who either had their sentences reduced or were released, and their convictions were in line with the 94 crime bill and the way criminal statutes were written under that piece of legislation.
And his thoughts on the whole
hold on. Go ahead, Angela.
Oh, what's up, Angela?
Sorry, just on this same point, you talked about taking the man in his totality.
Yeah.
So one of those things in his totality is what happened on January 6th, which was your first term in Congress.
Yeah.
Do you think he should be held accountable? Donald Trump should be held accountable for his role in the January 6th insurrection?
Well, I mean, listen, first of all, I would tell you that everybody's responsible for their own actions. Just like I'm not going to blame friends or blame anybody else for the things I've done wrong in my life. I'm not going to put that on him. I'm not going to run around and blame Bernie Sanders for the fact that Steve Scalise was shot. Because if you go back and look at when Steve Scalise, who's the current leader in the House of Representatives, who almost died at a congressional baseball practice. Hold on, I'm going to explain this. So I'm going to come back to January 6th.
Yeah, please do.
No, I will, of course. The shooter that almost killed Steve Scalise, the Republican leader, he said vehemently that the reason why he went to the congressional baseball practice of Republicans to shoot it up was because he felt that Republicans were going to take away health care. And what he had heard in his rhetoric was that was dangerous, and these Republicans had to be stopped. So I'm going to translate that to January 6th. The shooter is the one that perpetrated that crime. I'm not going to put that on Bernie Sanders, who he cited for the rhetoric around why he went to the congressional
see what Byron trying to do. I don't know if he's going to do.
Let me translate. Donald Trump authorized 10,000 National Guard troops. I'm on the oversight committee. He actually authorized 10,000 troops on January 4th, 2 days before January 6th, obviously.
I wasn't aware of this. Maybe we need to fact check it. But Byron is saying that 2 days before he authorized this, what did he say, 10,000 troops? Maybe I got the number wrong, but he's saying that he authorized a certain amount of troops just in case, I guess, something did happen.
So if you're going to say that you incited an insurrection, then how are you also going to authorize 10,000 National Guard troops to be at the Capitol? Are you inciting or are you not? Because the record is he authorized the troops. Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., did not want the troops at the Capitol. Muriel Bowser signed a letter on January 5th wanting the National Guard troops to be on traffic duty in D.C. Now, here's the funny thing about January 5th, 2021, is that nobody was in D.C. because D.C.'s rules around COVID-19 had the entire city shut down. The streets were empty during this time. So the National Guard that was authorized by Donald Trump were on traffic duty when there was no traffic.
I've never heard any of this before this interview. And maybe I just skimmed over it. Maybe Byron's just making it all up. I'm sure some people will think that. But I was not aware of this. And I'm not sure that it changes. I don't think it's going to change many people's perspectives. But it's good to know.
When they could have been at the Capitol. That's the history of January 6th. So your question is, well, did he incite a riot? Well, I never seen somebody incite a riot.
What I said,
and Uncle Brother, I agree. I agree with Florida being the South, and it used to be quite racist down here. And I agree that January 6th was no insurrection. How are you going to stage an insurrection with no damn guns? It would be the first insurrection ever staged, I believe, with no guns. But if they call it an insurrection, people just gonna go with it, I guess. I don't know. But let's see what Angela Rye has to say on this.
I'm gonna cut you up. I'm gonna make one point. I don't want to cut you off.
No. But I want to make sure that you're addressing the right point, because I actually did not use that language. What I asked you was, should Donald Trump be held accountable for his role in January 6th? And so what I think is important is to compare this to Steve Scalise being shot after someone wanted health care versus the rhetoric, the very dangerous rhetoric that Donald Trump spouted on January 6th, where more than 1,200 people have been charged in nearly all 50 states for their role, and 140 police officers were assaulted. The same police officers that your party has said they want qualified immunity for, and Donald Trump, because we're looking at the totality of the person, has said they should have full immunity, right? And when you think about the number of police officers who would get full immunity for their role in killing and being violent with people in our community like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Philando Castile, Charlene Lyles, Manny Ellis. Is that really the kind of rhetoric that you want to push, especially at the Breakfast Club?
Well, hold on.
That last line that she just said, especially at the Breakfast Club, I can't stand her. And I think I'm right to say that, or she bothers me. Or it's not even that she bothers me. I just don't like her very much. And it's because of stuff like that, because you're going to say that because you know that you're talking to a black audience at the Breakfast Club. So you're going to say like, sis, I'm going to say it. If it is what it is, if it's what I stand on, it's what I stand on, no matter whether I'm talking to a white group, black group, Indian group, Haitian group, it doesn't matter. But she just comes across in such a, like, it's almost as if, and this is the same thing that I had, like the problem when she was interviewing Jill Stein. It's like, what have you done? Like, what have you done? These people get on and try to just bully people and be so critical. What is your record of accomplishments and addressing these issues rather than just bringing up the problems that you have with other groups? So let's just keep going.
Hold on a second, Angela, because you brought in like 4 different topics now. Do you want to talk about
No, I
Trump?
didn't. What I brought in was January 6th responsibility, police accountability, and I used examples of why they should be held accountable. But you talked about how fantastic he was with the crime bill, which I object, but I'll let you finish your point.
Fair.
You also have not acknowledged the fact that this man was vehemently opposed to the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And you all are supposed to be the party that protects law enforcement, where over 150 police officers were assaulted that day on January 6th because of Donald Trump's rhetoric.
Okay, so
It's Dak. Just want to thank you for checking out our video and visiting the OG Network. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give us a like. And if you're looking to join a community of inspired individuals striving for purposeful abundance, subscribe. And if you're feeling real generous, share the video with some friends and family. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.